Hi everybody, TJ Mack Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here, and in today's video I'm going to show off 3 new acquisitions to my collection. First being a baseball card, then a football card, and then a hockey card. First the baseball card. It's this 1951 Gil Hodges. And when I add cards to my collection, one of the things I like to sometimes do in my videos, like I did last week, is just show how that card fits in with other cards in my collection, or even sometimes magazines that I have. And this 51 Bowman Hodges fits in perfectly with this 52 Duke Snider and Pee Wee Reese. As you can see here, they're all wearing the home uniforms. They got the Brooklyn Dodgers cap on. And the reason why I chose this Hodges card, first of all, is that in my eBay save searches, I have searches set up to where I like to use an analogy, and I've used this before, where it's more like a compass. I cover a certain area of cards, like early 50s Bowman football and baseball, graded copies of them in mid-grade, and then those will pop up in my searches. Or sometimes what I'll do is more like the GPS type search, where it's like calling out a specific card that I'm looking for in a specific grade. So I do either one way or the other way, and then cards will pop up. And I was looking through a general search of Bowman cards one night, and this one just happened to pop up at $53.99, and I immediately jumped on it because that is just a great price for a 51 Bowman Hodges. And I really like this card. When I got it in and I looked at some of Hodges' other cards from that era, this is the one that really just stands out to me. It's the same image as a 50 Bowman, but what I like about the 51 is the rectangular shape and how it really captures the face of Hodges nicely, and that great smile that he has as he's standing up what it looks like a wooden fence that's behind him. And when I put these 3 cards together, it just really captures that early 50s Brooklyn Dodgers era nicely. So it's just a great addition to my collection, and just one of those ones where I just happened to be looking and I just found a great new card to add. Here's the back of the card. And a close-up view of the front. Now, sometimes the cards we acquire can tell a story about the player. And in the case of this 1961 Fleer Bobby Layne, it's not on the front of the card that tells a story. It's more so on the back of the card, and I'm going to show that to you in a minute. But the reason why I'm acquiring this Bobby Layne card is that I am adding the key cards from the 1961 Fleer football set. That's one area of focus for it. But also, I just have this nice display here of 2 other Steelers that played alongside Layne in the early 60s. One being the wide receiver Jimmy Orr, who was the 1958 NFL Rookie of the Year. And I've talked about when I showed this card before that his first playing days card was the 1961 Fleer. It's kind of how football was back in those days, is that sometimes you wouldn't get a card until a few years after of a player. And then on the other side of Layne here is the Hall of Fame running back John Henry Johnson, who was the first 1,000-yard rusher in Pittsburgh Steelers history. And he was a very hard runner. Jim Brown had a lot of good things to say about his running style and how he would really punish you. Just one of the great backs of that era. So now I'm going to show you the back of this Layne card and what I'm talking about, how the back can tell the story. Now, for me, football from this era is very romanticized. It's not all about the numbers. Now, this card talks a little bit about the numbers, his career numbers, but it talks about the essence of who Bobby Layne was, as viewed by the Cleveland Browns Hall of Fame coach Paul Brown. And he said, "Without Layne, the Steelers are nothing. The fiery quarterback coming to them in the twilight of his career in 1958 has made them a threat to win any game in which he plays. He has thrown for more yardage than any passer in the history of football, over 24,000, and is second to Sammy Baugh in virtually every other passing statistic in the book. Bobby is also one of the great field generals of NFL history, or football history." And what I like about that is that last sentence. He was a true field general. That captures the essence of Bobby Layne, and I just love the fact that that's on the back of this card. It's also a nice looking back too, where they put the logo on the back as well as the front, and it's got that green color there that just really makes it stand out. There's a closer view of the Layne card right there. I talked about in a past video how the 1954 Topps hockey set may be one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful set ever produced from front to back. As you can see here, it's just a wonderful imagery of hockey during that time with the all-white background simulating the ice surface. And you got those logos prominently displayed. And just the artwork on the players is, to me, just stands out on this issue. And then you got the red, white, and blue imagery in the front. Now this is Topps' first hockey set, and they had the 4 American teams under contract, where Parkhurst had the 2 Canadian teams, the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Topps had the Bruins, the Rangers, the Blackhawks, and the Detroit Red Wings. And you can see on the back of these cards, it's got also the same color scheme as the front, which I think adds to the allure of the card just as much as you see on the front. Just beautiful artwork all the way around on this issue. Now this Warren Godfrey is a new addition to my collection, and it's not a card that I purchased. It was actually given to me, and this just amazes me, and I know it's often said about this community, is that I have a regular viewer of my channel. His name is Gary, and he goes by Golden Slumber 0474, and he reached out to me through email saying that he had a card that he wanted to send me. He has a complete 1954 Topps hockey set, and he had some extras, and he thought this card would just fit in perfectly with my collection. And I can't tell you how much it moves me that people watch your videos. I mean, I don't even show myself. I just come on here and talk and show cards, and it just connects with people, and it really means a lot to me that, you know, people watch the content and it means something to them. Enough to send me a card that fits in perfectly with my collection. And Gary, I'm taking this Warren Godfrey card and I'm putting it in my case. I took my 79 Topps Gilbert Perreault out, and I added this card in that bottom row next to the cards that Chris Stories and Cardboard had given me, as well as Dylan Double D Sports Card gave me that Shohei Ohtani card. So it's right next to those cards, just as a remembrance of this kind gesture that you made towards me. And I have other items in the room as well, or in other places in my house. I've given some cards that have been given me by others to my kids so they can have them in their collection. And it's just really a great community when people respond to what you do here in these videos. And I was going to quickly tell you a little bit about Warren Godfrey, and Gary actually has a connection to him. Godfrey played from 1952 to 1968 as a defenseman with the Boston Bruins and the Red Wings. And he was a good defenseman. He's one of those stay-at-home defensemen that you would often see in that era before the age of Bobby Orr, who just turned the position upside down, where he just posted mind-boggling offensive numbers. But he finished with 157 points in 789 games. And again, just a very good, solid player. But what stands out to me about this card is that Gary worked and became friends with Warren's close cousin, Tom Gallagher, and it was for over 40 years. And unfortunately, Tom had passed away, but his family and friends certainly knew about Warren Godfrey and just thought a lot of him. And Tom was 4 years younger than Warren, and he looked up to him when he was growing up. And Tom himself was a very good defenseman. At one time, he played for the Ontario Provincial Senior B champions in 1955-56, the Stamford Carrios. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Gary had actually sent me a picture from the Niagara Falls Public Library showing a Stamford Carrios team photo, and Tommy's in the photo. So this card just has a lot of special meaning to me, being it came from a subscriber, Gary, who's just a great guy, and I just really appreciate him thinking about me and adding this nice card to my collection that I'm always going to treasure. So again, Gary, thank you, and I just want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. Here again are the 3 new additions. We'll talk again soon. Everybody have a great weekend.